Yeah, so as Virya Naga said, I thought I'd speak a little bit on the theme of gold, and this is a kind of representing a sort of spiritual enlightenment, or even kind of representing Buddha nature, as Surya Gupta lovely sort of teed us up with. But my story actually begins at the deer park in Sarnath, where a great many stories about the Buddha do begin. And this is the place where he gave his first teaching, for those who don't know Sarnath well themselves. And I was there 3 or 4 years ago as part of a little trip around India, going to all the different kind of pilgrimage sites. And and I'd been to Varanasi before. I'm seeing a few nods. Anyone else been to Varanasi? Yeah. It's kind of where they prolifically burn the dead at the banks of the Ganges, and I found it quite kind of choking. I felt a little bit like stepping into the underworld. Varanasi, I found it a bit like that. But Sarnath was a short a hop in a tuk-tuk away from Varanasi. Short but quite a hectic tuk-tuk, if I remember correctly. And to set the scene a bit, so Sarnath it's like a kind of complex of these deeply meaningful spiritual kind of monuments. So you've got this whopping great big stupa, really whopping great big one, and there's a really big Buddha as well, a standing Buddha, which I hadn't seen before, but that one's quite new. That's from 2011 apparently, and there's some Jain sculptures as well. There's a whole kind of gallery, like a museum thing of those. And what else is there? Yeah, I saw a lot of these, like I guess they were sort of South Asian Buddhists in their saffron robes, circumnavigating the stupa. And it had this lovely, peaceful kind of, resonant sort of vibe about it, like really, peaceful place. And as well as the significance of Sarnath and this sort of energy of the place, there was something else that caught my eye, and it was this sign. And the sign read, "Don't stick gold foil on the monuments." And it was a big sign. It wasn't a small sign. It was like a big standing sign, not a paper sign. It was a physical, like a proper sign. Don't stick the gold foil on the monuments. So my first thought was, well, good job I didn't bring my gold foil with me. Because if I had, I would have wanted to stick it on these monuments. But beyond that, I thought, like, wow, who's doing that? Like, who's sticking gold foil on the monuments here? And how come it's such a popular thing to do? Like, how come so many people fancy sticking gold foil on the monuments that they've had to put up this sign? And you could just imagine this scene at like on the way in with the kind of guards looking through people's bags, no alcohol, no drugs. Is that some gold foil? Like, right, give that over. I think you can actually tell quite a lot about a people or about a place by the things that you're being asked not to do. And you do see some quite unusual signs in India. I thought they were quite unusual. It's no coconuts in your airport hand luggage, no starting fires in the shrine, and also no gold foil on the monuments. And so this really piqued my curiosity. I thought, I really must look this up. And I discovered that in other parts of the Buddhist world, particularly in Myanmar, it's seen as a real act of reverence to offer up some like gold, more like gold leaf, and to stick it on the statues there. And then knowing that, I thought that was actually quite beautiful. I thought it was quite a powerful gesture. To me, it seemed to represent. This is just my interpretation, but kind of all that is gold and luminous and bright and shiny, all that is good in me, trying to connect with or like offer up to the one who achieved this kind of boundless golden luminosity. The one who lit up the path so that we might all follow too. And that really appealed to me. But then gold has actually always really appealed to me. It's always really done it for me, gold. And not just for its aesthetic quality. And increasingly, I do think that gold is really just the best shorthand for all of the things that the Buddha represents. And when you do see this kind of image of a really big gold Buddha, there is something really awe-inspiring about it. I always kind of chime on about the one at Vajrasana, but that always has a real effect on me, the kind of image of this gold Buddha. And I think it's also really powerful because beyond the way that the gold looks, we've got this sort of, beautiful gold sort of shining and like the value and importance of it, but beyond how it looks, it seems to really encompass how a transcendental experience might feel. And this kind of luminous, expansive, kind of molten golden quality. And that, there's no hard edges when you shine a light on something golden. It's sort of all kind of shimmering, isn't it? So I've really sort of connected with that as a feeling as well. And a theme of today, and I think a big sort of part of this spiritual practice is this idea of trying to get down into images and also into words how an experience might feel so that other people might be able to connect with it or experience it for themselves. Much like how the Buddha did do his first teaching at Sarnath, even though he wasn't sure if it would just completely blow people's tiny minds, which it did. But this idea of a kind of, I really connect with this sort of sense of a spiritual connection and a creative connection being kind of part and parcel of the same thing. I think they're both about kind of effing the ineffable, or trying to grasp something that's quite mysterious and quite abstract. And I found that the Buddhist path has done a lot for me and my creativity. I generally measure kind of how well I feel or how well life is going by how creative I feel. And one of the first long retreats I went on was at Vajrasana, and as chance would have it, it was led by Surya Gupta. She's not here now, so maybe I should have taken that line out, but maybe she'll watch this back if I'm really lucky. But it was the first long retreat I'd gone on, and it was about the drama of the Buddha's cosmic enlightenment. And maybe 3 or 4 days into this retreat, I started getting these really wonderful images start arriving in my head, quite fully formed too. And things that I really wanted to paint, things like woodlands lit up by a golden light and really big golden orbs and a lot of this sort of golden shimmering. It was some really, really quite tasteful stuff kind of coming to me in this meditation practice. And all with this real luminous quality, which I thought would kind of represented this sort of elevated or, transcendental state. Even a glimmer of something more that's just outside of our awareness. And I think it feels like you do get these signs on the path which make you feel as though you're on the right tracks, as though the path is being lit up or kind of illuminated. And that, for me, that was one of those. And I think there is an alchemic quality to the shift that happens when people come together in the presence of the Buddha, much as we are coming together in the presence of the Buddha today. When people come together to connect with their most compassionate or their most wise selves and to connect with that in each other. And I think that in itself is kind of golden. Thank you.
I'm going to start somewhere that, Surya Gupta told us about the Four Noble Truths. It's being like the first teaching of the Buddha. And it was the first teaching that I came across. And I loved it. I basically instantly fell in love with this. I was like, this is great. This is the map. This is the map I need, right? The goal is to be free from suffering. And here you are. You've laid it out, We suffer. This is why. This is what you need to do. and the Eightfold Path was like, it was like it was like an ordnance survey map at the highest level of detail, And I thought, okay, perfect. And it really appealed to me. First of all, I do just like maps. And second of all, the kind of mind I have, I think, I like certainty. Yeah, I like to know where I'm going before I go there. So the thing that baffled me about Buddhism was all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Because it's not just the Buddha. It's like, well, first of all, there's 5 Buddhas. So there's the Buddha, and then there's 5 Buddhas. So I don't know how that works. And then there's like Bodhisattvas. I don't know how, there's like 16 or something. And I was, and it all looked very kind of alien to me. All that like Far Eastern kind of iconography and stuff. And if anything, it seemed like a distraction to me, because I was looking at the map here, the Eightfold Path. I was like, nothing on here about, bowing down to a golden statue and chanting verses of an ancient language. What's that got to do with What's that got to do with suffering? Well, it's particularly the suffering in my life. How do those two things go together? So here I was, my map, and I was like, kind of scratching my head here. Anyway, so today basically I'm going to tell you about a kind of slightly bizarre story that changed the way I think about the map. It's not actually about the Buddha. It's about a particular bodhisattva who kind of embodies one aspect of the Buddha. So in 2020, I became a Mitra in this hall, actually. And then the day afterwards, I woke up and I went into the living room, and I saw I'd kind of, the night before, I kind of, laid out all my enormous hoard of presents that I got. And it was quite early in the morning. I woke up, and I went into the living room, and I started kind of, because I hadn't had a chance to look through all this stuff, so I was looking through it. I was getting quite emotional, actually, because there's a real feeling of like well-wishing in all this stuff, all these like thoughtful little gifts and stuff. And there was one of my friends had given me a postcard with a note on it, and the image on the postcard was Manjughosha. So some of you might know who Manjughosha is. I certainly didn't at the time, but I do now. So Manjughosha is a bodhisattva, a young man, and the image, the archetypal image of him, he's a very kind of beautiful young man, and his skin is this like golden red color, and he's got this look of like peace and wisdom in his eyes. And in one hand he has this book that he's kind of holding to his heart, and in the other hand he has a flaming sword that he's holding above his head. And I was sat on the sofa, and I was in this kind of emotional state, and I looked at this postcard, and it said underneath it, Manjughosha, Bodhisattva of Wisdom. And there was something about like the effortlessness of how he was holding this sword, and the power of the sword. So it's like this dichotomy of like the power and the effortlessness. And it just struck me like that is the Dharma. At any time I've had this contact with the Dharma, it's like effortless, and it's so powerful. And what Manjughosha's sword is promising is to slice through our delusion like lightning slices through the sky. So Surya Gupta talked a bit about this, that aspect of wisdom being like lightning. And in that moment, it was as though I was seeing my whole life up until that moment and all the suffering therein, and I just saw all of this suffering is really because I'm delusional. It's because I lack clarity. I've never wanted for food or shelter. I've never even wanted for love, really. I've always been surrounded by love. But still there's been this suffering. And it's because of this lack of clarity. And here was Manju Gosha kind of promising, like, I can rend that delusion asunder. And then I kind of thought, my mind just went to like all of the people in the world, and like my suffering times 8 billion, right? And every single one of those people, unless they're an enlightened being, is suffering from this same lack of clarity, right? And then I had the weirdest thought, this strange conviction that like, I could be Manju Gosha. And Surya Gupta talked a bit about this as well, this kind of, sometimes you have this feeling of like, oh, that's I actually have that potential within me. You know, it might be small, it might be just like a kind of an acorn at the moment, but that potential is there. And I could kind of channel this clarity and use it to heal me and to heal other people, you know, to pass that on. So it was really quite a powerful experience, and I kind of puzzled over it for a few months, because like I said at the start, I was like, I don't really know how this fits in. So I was like, what's going on here? You know, this is a bit weird. This isn't like me. And then a few months after that, something really, really like quite shocking happened to me, in a good way, don't worry. Basically, I was on retreat and I was meditating, and I was trying to do this insight meditation, right? So whenever my mind was trying to grasp after something, I would just kind of come back to the reflection, there's nothing to grasp, okay? There's nothing there to grasp, you're here. So I would do this, and I would kind of, it's like I was going down through layers of like this habitual tension. You know, like you have habitual tension in your body, well, there was habitual tension in my mind, and I would like let go a bit, there's nothing to grasp, and then my mind would kind of lash back. I'm like, it's okay, you know, you're grasping, but there's nothing there to grasp, you know? And I just keep on kind of like reasoning with my own mind like this, going down, down. And I kind of got to this level where it was quite deep. It was just like there was a kind of physical knot in my, like near my navel, that was just like, just even under all of these layers, I could just see, okay, whew, this is deep now. There's something in me that really doesn't want to let go. And then this movement kind of happened in my imagination. So, yeah, the best way I can describe it is like sometimes when I'm about to go to sleep and I'm like on the verge of a dream, and it's like my thoughts become the dream. I don't know if anyone else has had that experience. It's like you're thinking about something and it feels kind of like you're voluntarily thinking about it, like you're driving the thought. And then it kind of takes on a momentum of its own, and then you're in a dream and your unconscious is kind of showing you things that you know, are surprising you. So it was kind of like this. So it's like I could see, so in my imagination there were these kind of dark shapes, but I was, unlike in a dream, I was still completely aware of where I was and what I was doing. I was meditating, I was aware of my body, and this dark shape kind of started to build into this pillar, this like huge pillar towering above me in my imagination. And then I had the thought, well, perhaps this is Manju Gosha. And it was. So it was. There was a kind of summoning. There was like a kind of summoning to it, but it was very real and quite scary as well at the same time. So it was terrifying. It was magnetic, and up he rose, and he had his sword, and this knot of tension that was in my navel, he basically struck his sword down and into this spot of tension, right? Like he was trying to kind of break it. It didn't break, and then he rose higher. I struck again, and then a third time he rises up. He smashes this knot like an egg. It breaks, and then my whole body is just flooded with this just relief. So it's complete relief, and the vision just vanishes, and then I'm just there. So when I was planning this talk, I was very tempted to theorize about exactly what this means. But the truth is I don't actually know. I don't actually know what it means. So, and I was a bit reluctant actually to talk about it, and I'll tell you why. It's because I'm a map person. Okay, so I really like maps. So if I were in this audience right now, and I'm there with my map, and this guy starts talking about this absolutely crazy experience he's had, I'd be like, what are you talking about, mate? I've never had anything like that. That's not on the map. Like, good for you, maybe, that this mad thing happened to you, but it's not very helpful. The reason I'm sharing it with you is because that experience changed my idea of the map, right? So I don't think the map can really show you exactly the way that you're going to go. And I saw a video yesterday, and it was about medieval peasants going on pilgrimages. Okay, so bear with me. I'm nearly done. 1 minute. Right? And basically, they didn't have maps, right? They just had a list of places that were on the way. Like, so someone could walk from England to like Rome, or even further, Jerusalem, right? They didn't have a map. They didn't even have any idea of like the geography of getting there. They literally just had a list of places, and they would go, "What's the next place?" And they just walk to that place. And then when they got there, they say, "Does anyone know the way to this next place?" And then someone would tell them, "Oh yeah, it's that way." And then they just go like that, just from place to place. And they didn't know what's coming, right? So I think this is basically what the spiritual path is a lot more like. Okay, you can't see the whole terrain before you get there, but you have a kind of list of places, and you go through it in that order. And so this is very scary to me, but it's also very freeing. It's scary because I instinctively want that certainty, right? I want to know exactly where I am, where I'm going. But it's freeing because I don't actually need to know all of that stuff. These pilgrims, they would get to Rome. And in the same way, I think, we don't need to know exactly what the map looks like. We just need to get to the next place and then ask for directions. Yeah.